What's up, everyone? This is Anthwon Thomas with another episode of the High Value Agent Podcast, where we inspire people to create a better life through real estate. And joining me today is my business partner, Sam McClellan. Sam we've been working together for now several months, and I've been able to really see the growth that Sam has exemplified. And since getting into real estate, check this out, y'all. Sam has set 86 seller and buyer appointments. Okay. 86. He signed 37. Okay. These are people saying, yeah, I want you to be my agent. He's put 7 under contract and he's already closed 4 with a few more he's going to be closing out over the next couple weeks. Okay. And here's the thing that I'm very excited to touch on in today's podcast, because he made a commitment that he wanted to be a high value listing agent. Okay. A listing agent, which, if you're going to be a listing agent, you got to be very competent. You got to be very confident, right? You got to be someone who's willing to understand that I can go through rejection. A lot of us are so eager to work with buyers because buyers don't reject you, they reject the house. Well,
Mm.
sellers, they reject you. And Sam is saying, I'm going to step up and be a high value listing agent. So, with Sam, we're going to dive deep into his growth journey, all the lessons that he has learned, the power of having a positive team and a very high level culture around you, the core activities that he's doing every single day that will help him build massive momentum in the fourth quarter and going into the new year, 2025. So, Sam, how are you doing today, brother?
Doing all right. Got stuck behind a train on my way to work today, but I'm doing okay.
So this is the stuff that you don't know behind the scenes. Sam and I were supposed to shoot this podcast episode an hour ago. I mean, we both were literally stuck behind the same train and we're texting each other, and it's like, dude, this has probably been the longest train that I've experienced waiting on for probably the
hmm
past 10 years.
hmm
It took me, where normally it takes me only 15 minutes to get to work, it took me 45 minutes to get to work this morning.
hmm
Oh my goodness gracious. So, but we made it. That is how
Yes.
committed we are to making sure that we are providing value. So, Sam, let's hop into it, man.
Sure.
Um, Share with everyone in 3 minutes or less. Kind of let everybody know, who are you? Like, what's your background? Whether you want to talk about family upbringing, early life, education, anything, but kind of give
Yeah.
everybody a background as to who you are.
Okay. Okay. I'll see if I can do that in under 3 minutes. Um, Probably. So we'll start with, as a kid, my family and we lived on site for a United Methodist church camp. And I say that, it's really specific, but I say that because I think I spent 12 years there. Um, and that's really some of the fondest memories my whole family has growing up. And so one of the great things about growing up on that camp is we had 500 acres, 700 acres all to
Mm,
ourselves that were only occupied a few months out of the year during summer camp. And so throughout the rest of the year, it wasn't uncommon for, as we're waking up in the morning, we'll sit down and have breakfast, and then I would just I'd pack a lunch in a backpack, some water, and I'd just kind of disappear into the woods for pretty much all day. And I don't know if parents would do that these days. I don't know if I'd let my girls do that these days. Um, but my parents did, and it cultivated this love for being on my own, and allowing my imagination just to kind of run wild. um,
mm,
and so that's one of the reasons that I think real estate has been so valuable in this case, because I know that trusting the process that we've laid out here, and I see it with plenty of my other colleagues that we do that we work with. um, I can see, I can not only imagine what my life could be, but I can now legitimately see what it's going to take to get to that spot.
mm,
Um, and so, after growing up on the church camp, my sister and I were homeschooled for quite a while, but I decided to go to, well, my parents and I decided that it was a good idea for me to go to public high school in preparation for university. Um,
Mhm.
and so I had some really wonderful teachers when when I was in high school, and it was ultimately those teachers who made me decide that I wanted to also be a teacher. They took um, this shy, introverted kid, and made high school a welcoming and fruitful experience. So I went to Ball State to become a physics teacher, and I started off in a small little rural school. I was surrounded by it was difficult, as a first year teacher. You're focused on just keeping your head above water.
Mhm.
But there were some really cool people that I got to connect with, and just grow together, seek encouragement from, and sometimes commiserate with. Um,
Mhm.
then I transitioned to a larger school, the Tippecanoe School Corporation, a larger high school, which was wonderful. I got to do more of what I wanted to do slowly, but then after a few years, I slowly started to see less and less of what I wanted. So I thought maybe I'll go for a master's degree, and I got the stuff that I needed to become an administrator. And for anyone who's been on the job hunt, you know well enough that sometimes you get beat out in interviews for things you can't control. It's you with a resume and another person with an identical resume, except they have 2 years of experience. Can't do anything about that,
Yeah.
but I can't get the experience until I get the job. So we
Yeah.
just went back and forth on that, and eventually there was enough lack of support and enough stress with the just what public education can kind of be these days. Not everywhere. I'm not saying everywhere, um, but at one point, it was December of 23. My wife said, "I'm tired of you coming home grumpy. I need you to pick something to do and do it." Um, and so we had tossed around this possibility of real estate for a while. We have a lot of goals for ourselves that are real estate oriented, so we figured it would be a good transition to build the knowledge in this industry. So started my licensure in January of 2024. Got my licenses in June, I believe, which is right around the time that I started here. Um, and yeah, there's been very measurable and noticeable growth, and I hesitate to say momentum because I'm just getting the first whiffs of it. Um,
Mhm.
but that's kind of where I am right now, and I'm excited to see what the next 6 months even holds for myself and my family.
That's awesome, man. I appreciate you sharing that because I know there's so many people that are currently in that situation where their real estate has been on the mind, but they are comfortable financially at another job.
Hmm.
Taking the risk, whether it's leaving that W-2 8 to 5, 9 to 5 job where you're getting that check every month or every week or every 2 weeks, to now moving into real estate, something that you're not guaranteed income.
Mm,
You're not guaranteed income, and you got a family that's depending on you, probably, right? Like, there's a lot of people out here who are supporting other people, and being able to hear your story of making that transition, and then the push of doing the same mundane work every single day, not knowing if it's going to work, but you just keep hearing this bald guy say, keep doing it. I'm telling you, it's going to work itself out, right? And then you have colleagues and teammates saying the same thing to now finally start getting some things going. Like, I hope, if you're watching this or listening to this and you are thinking about making the jump, really use Sam as inspiration, or borrow belief that it can happen. As long as you make the transition, you got good support around you, and you're committed to doing the work, it can work out for you. And Sam's just getting started. I do want to circle back though, because you mentioned that you got your license in June and you started with us right away.
yep.
And I kind of named off some of the stats, right, that you've accomplished so far.
Hmm.
Um, the number one reason why agents get out of the business is because they're not setting appointments. They're not getting anybody signed, whether it's a buyer or a seller. They're not putting anyone under contract.
Hmm.
They're not closing anything. They don't have anything going on. You've
Okay.
been able to, in just 5, 6 months, accomplish all of that. So, the question that I have for you that can support the listeners is, what was that like your first 90 days, right? Coming from your previous job, you got a family at home to support. You're probably, like nervous, you're probably scared, right?
Oh
What was
yeah.
that first 90 days like for you?
Um, Terrifying. Uh,
With a capital T.
with a capital T. Yeah, absolutely. Um, there were a couple nights where we're having conversations with my wife. I just don't know if this is the right decision. I don't know if like I don't see things happening. And I know, like one of the top agents on the team, he didn't transact until his fourth month in. But then someone else that jumped on board with me at the exact same time, I think she transacted within her first 2 months. Um, which we can talk more about, like, that's their journey or whatever. I get tired of that phrase. um, but
Mm,
I knew it could happen. I knew it could, but that didn't mean that, yeah, that didn't mean that I didn't still feel like, I mean, I wasn't making a ton as a teacher, but I knew, what was it, every every fifth of the month and every 20th of the month, I think those were the days that we got paid. um, at least I knew there was money coming in every single one of those days.
yep.
Um, so those first 90 days were terrifying. Um, but my wife at one point was just like, "You got to stop. you got to you got to stop worrying. This is a good decision." And
Mm,
we knew we signed up for maybe a little, maybe a little slimmer holiday meals, or not going out on dates as expensive dates on a regular basis. Um, we knew we signed up for that, and so,
mhm,
um, we ultimately, it was came down to just, I'm doing this for my wife and for my girls, and my wife has my back
mm,
100%. That was probably one of the most important parts. Like, there are times where what I'm doing she may not be super familiar with, but
mhm.
every once in a while she would say, small things that it's just like, corrective things, like, "You got to stop worrying." um,
Yeah.
or supportive things like, I think you're doing a good job with this. um, and so, yes, it was, the first 90 days were terrifying. The second 90 days disappeared like that. So I it was I've been thinking about that recently, because I think I just passed my 6 month mark, I think. um,
Mhm.
and so, yeah, the first 90 days, they never ended. um, and then the second night, I don't know where the second 90 days went. It just They just flew.
Yeah, that's I there's so much to unpack there. And we don't have a full hour. Sam is very busy, so he's blessed us with his time today. So we're going to make sure it's impactful. But there is one thing you mentioned in there. It's the support that you got from your wife. And I am here to tell you, because I lived through this, the support at home is so important. If you have people at home that are willing to be your rock, and willing to support you, and willing to give you those words of affirmation in such a very high pressure time, right? Making that transition from old job to real estate career, so key. If you don't have support at home, I think I don't I think it's very difficult to build any type of momentum. I really do think if you have any business going on, it's going to drop precipitously, because if you don't have that type of support, you're literally fighting the business challenges, and then you're fighting family challenges, and
Mm,
it's tough to overcome. So I really appreciate that you brought that up. Um, let's get into some tactical stuff, because the average agent sells about 4 to 5 homes a year. Okay. At this point, if I was a betting man, I would bet that you're going to help 25 to 30 families in your first 12 months. Okay. based on what I'm seeing, based on what you're building, based on the skills that you're building, all of that, what would you say are the core activities that you have focused on to get the results that you're currently getting, and that's going to really help propel you over the next 6 months
Mhm.
to really just kind of break through? What are the core activities that you do on a daily basis?
Yeah, that's a good question. My afternoons are usually a little flexible. It depends.
Hmm.
Sometimes I'm showing properties. Sometimes I'm helping negotiate contracts. Sometimes I'm having conversations with possible sellers. Um, so my afternoons are fairly flexible. My 8 to noon, I try to stick to a very rigid schedule. I'll get to the office in the morning, um, and before the time that we as a team come together and encourage each other with what's going well, help each other by addressing questions or challenges, and then supporting each other by practicing our skills through practicing conversations and um, different things like that. Before that, depending on the day, sometimes a colleague of mine and I sit down and we still practice even more,
Mm.
um, or we take some time and refresh on what's happening in the market, because if there's one thing about the real estate market is that it can change on a day-to-day basis. um, Sometimes it's about trying to drum up creative ideas to provide value to clients or potential clients, whether that be through education or through communication or through resources. But that's that first up until about 9:30 or so, and then for the next hour it's all about trying to find more people to help reach their real estate goals, whether
Mm.
that be whether that be calling through our list of people who have expressed interest in making a move, um,
Hmm.
talking with people who are trying to sell their home on their own and just trying to be as supportive as I can, whether that be bringing buyers to them or helping or offering to help them sell their home if they've decided that they've given it a fair shot, the old college try, and decided to move on. um, Anything like that. And then then, after looking for new business, the next hour and a half or so until about lunch is spent on nurturing and continuing to build the rapport with the business I currently have.
Mm.
Um, whether that be talking with buyers that we have, whether it be talking with buyers that I've sat down with and maybe are still working on some credit, whether that be paying down a credit card or consolidating, doing whatever they have to do. Um, Sometimes it can be scheduling showings with those clients. Um, it can also just be processing paperwork for listings to make sure that we can get their home on the market as soon as possible, or at least on their timeline. Um,
Hmm.
it's about nurturing those relationships that I've committed to providing a high level of service to already, and
That's
then
awesome.
we break for lunch.
Yep. And then you mentioned after lunch, it could be flexible depending on what you got going on. Heck, uh, there's even a day in the week where you call it a quiet day, right? Where it's like,
Mhm.
all right, I'm gonna make sure I'm executing on my time blocks, building and maintaining relationships in my morning time blocks, right?
Yep.
And then in the afternoon, I'm going to break and take a day for myself.
Hmm.
We call it active renewal. It's
Yeah.
being able to refill your cup, doing something that you enjoy to do, so that you can come back stronger the next day. So, people, he just broke down for you. Like, if you want to do well in this business, keep it simple. Get your schedule dialed in. He told you every morning, this is what I'm doing, right?
Hmm.
This is what I'm doing. And then just consistently do it, right? So that was beautiful. Thanks, Sam.
Yeah.
Um, so we're going to. I want to pivot because I do want to real briefly. We got about 5 minutes left. I want to talk about listings and sellers
Mm.
because I'm all right. Let me break this down for everyone. One of my one of the curses that I have in my life is the fact that I just want to make sure people have context, and I just have to make sure people, I have to slow down for a second. So please walk with me on this, y'all. To be a new agent and say, I'm going to be listing focused is very uncommon. There's people that I know personally that worked with a couple sellers and got their ass beat, not
Hmm.
physically, but like emotionally and mentally. And they literally stepped away from working with sellers. They said, I'm a buyer's agent. I'm no longer working with sellers. And they took 2 years off for
Mm.
working with sellers. Like they would not step foot in a listing presentation. For a new agent to come in and say, I'm going to dominate the listing business. I'm going to build up inventory. I'm going to sell that inventory. I'm going to control the market. That was the mindset that Sam came in with.
Mm.
Sam, what has your experience been like working with sellers, and what do you do to prep yourself to be a confident agent working with sellers? What does that look like and feel like for you?
So what's it look like has been, one side of the pendulum all the way to the other side of the pendulum. There are times where I sit down with someone who's looking to sell their home, and it's like, yeah, I don't. All of everything that you're saying makes sense. Please just sell it. And those are wonderful. Everyone wants those. Um,
Mhm.
then there are some right here in the middle that require some extra explanation. Um,
Yes.
this is the story. This is the picture that I'm painting about
Mm,
what your home could do in the market based on what other homes like yours are doing in the market, and this is what I am going to do for you in this entire process.
yeah.
Um, and then there's some people all the way over here that definitely want to sell their home. um, I've had the pleasure of working with a few different folks who felt very confident that they could sell their home on their own, and absolutely, they certainly could. Um, I think the phrase I've heard is like, my 4-year-old kid could sell any house for $1. And without trying to sound too snarky, it's, yeah, you definitely could sell your home on your own, but at the same time, I think what people think selling their home on their own is putting a for sale by owner sign out front, putting it on Zillow, and maybe putting it on Facebook.
Mm,
That's fine. You get a lot of exposure from there. Um,
mhm.
but then I have conversations with them, and that obviously requires much more demonstration of what we are bringing, what I am bringing to the table for them, outside of just um, what am I now going to have to pay to get my home sold.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
and
yeah.
sometimes they don't want to hear it. Sometimes they really don't want to hear it because they've got this image in their head that this house is worth $400,000 to them, and that's great. It could be to the right person,
Mhm,
but the market is saying it's probably more around like 380, 385. And when they see
mm,
that number, they've gotten so attached to that 400 that it's hard to see the reality of the
mhm.
circumstance, and that even though it's still less than what they wanted, they're still accomplishing their goal of selling their home
Yeah.
and moving on to the next one.
So good. What again, like you guys really pay attention to what he's saying. Like as a high level, high value seller agent, you have to be very good at communicating not only what the market is doing, but how you're going to, as an agent, as a professional, save them time and maximize their proceeds,
Mm,
right? Protect their equity. We step in as high value listing agents as protection for our clients,
yeah.
right? And we are in an investment that the client is making in us to protect their equity, right?
Hmm.
But if you cannot articulate that at a high level, and you're talking to a for sub owner, oh, they're gonna test you. And
Mm,
they should. And here's the thing, we love our clients. We love everybody in the community. We are here to support. We're not a fit for everyone. Everyone's not a fit for us. Everyone is not a fit for everyone when it comes to two people come together in a partnership to make a big financial decision and to move through a transaction. We understand that.
Hmm.
So please take this the way I intended. Some of you agents don't deserve some of this seller business. And I love you guys, but you're not doing the work required to build the skills needed to support these sellers at a high level. What I could say about Sam is he shows up and he is always volunteering. Like if you want to be a high level, high value agent, do these things. These are what Sam is doing. He's exemplifying the stuff. He's volunteering on role plays. He's asking for feedback. He's embracing the feedback. He's willing to go out there and the things that he learned, he's willing to actually test it. Does it work or does it not work? And he comes back with the outcome and he's asking for more feedback. So I'm telling you right now, Sam being a an agent who's now 6 months in, I'd put Sam up against some of the top in our market. And I'm confident Sam could come out of there after meeting with a seller versus three other top agents. I'm confident Sam will come out of there with a signed listing contract because that seller felt comfortable and confident in Sam's ability to get the job done. Right. Um, I got to give you praise on that, man, because I think people need to understand that working with sellers is a different ball game.
Hmm.
Let's get ready to wrap this up. Knowing what you know now, looking back over your previous 6 months from the time you started in real estate, knowing what you know now, will there be anything that you would do different at this point?
The things that I have been taught throughout the past several months by people like yourself, by some of the coaches we bring in, and plenty of my other colleagues in the bullpen. Um, there was always this little bit in the back of my head that was like, I don't know. Or maybe if I do it, maybe if I change what you're saying a little bit here, I can, I can get more out of it. And it actually ended up making more work that was ultimately less productive at the end of the day. Um, One of the things that I did a lot of when I first started was anytime I had what I felt was like a good enough conversation with someone to say they might at some point in even the next 5 years want to make a move, I'd snag them, hold on to them myself, and um, then it just became this massive follow-up game that was impossible to keep up because I was trying to keep up with 300 people, and 200 of them had zero intent of making any serious move within the next 12 months, even within the next 3 years.
Mm,
um, and so I got a little grabby, and definitely didn't entirely trust that the process was going to get me where I am today. Um, and I think that's for any agent, that
mhm,
like you're looking for as many opportunities as you can. So
mhm,
like, you know, d- one of my colleagues, when it came to finding seller leads, um, the conversation was quality over quantity. Um, and that's been a big focus of mine over the past few weeks, is trimming down the people that I'm intentionally nurturing relationship with, so that the folks that I'm interacting with are people who are going to find value in what I have to offer them because they intend on making a move soon.
mm.
I'll also say this for myself, and I don't know if this applies to every agent or not, but I know this is a difference maker for myself. I said earlier I get really tired of the this is my journey phrase.
Yeah.
I really do hate that. Um, but that doesn't mean that doesn't mean it's not true, I
Right.
suppose. Um, I have always been a person that compared myself to other people, but never in a, like, I don't know if you can say healthy, but in a, like, a competitive way that's then, like, that then drives me to then be better than that person.
Mhm.
Um, I compare myself to other people and I see that I'm not as good as them, so I'm not good. Um, and so, so either I'm not good or what I'm doing isn't good or where I am isn't good. Um, and that at the end of the day, that actually ended up hurting my family. Um,
Mm,
because whether or not I meant to communicate this, there was a feeling, at least from my wife, I think that there was at least a small question in the back of her head. It's like, is he happy with me? Um,
mm,
and so, and like, and when she may not have even actually asked that question in her head, but I started to wonder, am I communicating that to her, that like, I don't have this, I don't have this, I don't have this, but I do have you. um,
mm.
and that's fantastic. Um, so don't compare yourself to anyone unless you know yourself well enough to know that that encourages you to be better.
Yes.
If comparing yourself helps you be better, great.
Mm,
Lean into that, for the sake of yourself, your family, and your bank account. But if you're like me and comparing yourself just results in you getting down on yourself, you have got to just tunnel vision on your journey and stop looking at others. And it's certainly not easy. I know that well enough.
for sure. Man, I really do want to honor you and your transparency in this episode. This has been great. Listen, everyone, Sam kept it very, very simple in this episode, breaking down how he was able to get the results that he's getting so far, right? Number one, he made the big jump from a previous career into real estate. He felt the emotions of fear. He did it anyways, right? Because he wanted more. He didn't want to cap his growth. He made the move. He chose the right environment to be a part of. Very, very, very important. He then understood through being terrified, there was a 90-day window where he knew he had to do the same boring stuff, extremely mundane, very uncomfortable things day after day after day. What are those things? Prospecting and lead follow up or lead nurture.
Hmm.
And then he had to get very clear on his ideal client because as he became more mature in his business, he realized it's not good for me to go wide. It's better for me to go deep.
Hmm.
Meaning, I don't need to have 300 people in my database.
Hmm.
I only need to have 100 or even maybe
Hmm.
less than that
Yeah. No.
because it's about building meaningful and deep connections with these people. And then he realized I got to get more skilled. So I'm going to practice more. I'm going to do more, right?
I was gonna add to that. You said prospecting and lead follow up. I'd throw in prep and practice,
Yes.
because
Yes.
I was preparing for a listing consult last week. I was prepared out of my mind. Felt great. We ended up having to reschedule, and so then I was using that information in a practice yesterday, and I hadn't looked at it in a few days, and
Hmm.
all of a sudden I felt rusty again. Um, and that was weird to realize that like I had prepped like crazy, and I probably need to keep prepping.
Yeah. Because yeah, it's people understand you're in a competitive sport and you are in a game that requires you to consistently feel confident. In order for you to consistently feel confident, you got to consistently practice and do the thing, right? So this is good, man. I hope you guys just take away from this podcast episode that you can have an extraordinary business and understand it's going to take time and you have to have the skill that you have to have the skill of delayed gratification.
Mm.
That's all. And if you can build that and do the work, then you'll do good. Hey Sam, hey man, we got to get you on a part two here in a few months after you get some more momentum building and be able to share with you some of the stories as far as working with sellers and some of your wins, some of your losses. Man, would you be open to that?
Absolutely.
Awesome. Awesome. So to put a bow on this, Sam, if there's an agent out there, whether it's in our community or it could be across the nation, it doesn't matter where you're at, where you're located.
Mhm.
If there's an agent out there and they have questions, they want to learn more about how to prep for sellers, how to convert more sellers. Because if you don't know, Sam is getting like he's very good at working FISBOs, and he's already converted about three. How many? At four of them?
Three, yeah, three. Let's call it three.
And we've only been focusing on FISBOs for what,
Two
two
months
and a half
maybe.
months,
Yeah.
3 months, maybe.
Hmm.
Yeah. So and these are ones when I say convert signed
Yeah.
and active on the market and probably even some are pending, right?
Yeah.
I ain't talking about converted by just meeting with them. I'm talking about like taking them from stranger, turning them into a client. Okay.
Exactly.
If there's an agent out there and they want to learn more about that or just, your successes or what to avoid, how can they reach you?
Probably the best place to reach me directly is on social media, Instagram or Facebook. Just look for Sam McClellan. It's hard to miss a ginger with a beard, so just look for this face. Um, but you can also find me. You can also find me at Silver Lining Real Estate, Silver Lining Real Estate Group here in Lafayette. That's the agency that I work with. Um, and if you have a one-off question, send it over. But if you want to, especially if you're local, I am always a fan of coffee, so let's
There
sit
we
down
go.
and share a cup.
Absolutely. And if you're a buyer or seller,
Hmm.
and you want to work with one of the best in our market, reach out to Sam. Again, social media, Facebook, email, reach out to him. He'll be very, very happy to support you and answer any questions you have. Okay.
Absolutely.
You know where to find me, all social media platforms. Please, if you're watching on YouTube, subscribe to the podcast, to the YouTube channel. Leave us a comment, give us a thumbs up. Spotify, iTunes, you know what to do. Leave us a 5-star review or leave us a 1 star. Let us know how we're doing. I
Yeah.
don't care. Any feedback is good feedback, in my opinion.
Hmm.
But let us know. Sam, man, I really appreciate your time. Thank you for sharing with the audience. And again, y'all will see Sam again in the future on the
Happy to
podcast,
contribute.
and he's going to bring more value. So, all right, you guys, we're going to holler at y'all. Y'all stay safe. Put the work in. Peace.